Major League Baseball's draft is in the books. The one and only Aaron Fitt, D1Baseball.com, great clubhouse guy, joins us to kind of recap. Before we get to the draft, there were 42 ACC players taken, 3 from Wake Forest in the first 10. The draft used to go on forever. There were like 40 some odd rounds, really unlimited, I guess, basically. What are your thoughts on the draft really shrinking down to, it almost seems almost nothing at this point, where there was a couple of years ago just a 5-round draft, right? And now is it 10 or is it 20? What is it?
So they did go down to 5 during the pandemic year 2020 because they're just, they didn't even have a season that year and everything was just weird, not a whack. Now we're back to 20 rounds, which I guess feels like a pretty good number. I mean, overall, I'm kind of opposed to what I view as the shrinking of baseball, slashing all the affiliates, all these minor league teams that got cut really right after the pandemic. I mean, they kind of used that as an excuse to slash, and pinch pennies is really what it comes down to on the MLB side. They're saying that they kind of trust college baseball to develop players, and I think there's some validity to that, and certainly as a college writer, that's not a terrible thing, but I also think it's not great for baseball as a whole to create fewer professional jobs playing baseball, and to have baseball in fewer professional markets. I mean, I think limiting all of those affiliates was a shame, and it also, it really made it harder for players to take time to develop. I mean, there are guys that used to be, it would take 4 years to figure it out, and then they figure it out and they become an all-star, but nowadays there's fewer jobs, there's fewer minor league teams, so if you don't learn fast, you're done.
That's
and
right.
I don't think that's great either. So ultimately, I mean, 20-round draft, given the number of affiliates we currently have, I think does make sense, but I think you probably needed a bigger draft back when there were more rosters to fill.
No question. You also were talking with Aaron Fitt, D1Baseball.com, the reliance on college players now. I know last year there were a lot more high schoolers, I think, in the first round. Did the balance tip pretty heavily in favor of college players, and does that have anything to do with, like, Paul Skeens going from the draft last year to starting the All-Star game tonight this year?
I think it's kind of shifted more and more toward the college side in recent years, and this year certainly, I think it was it 78%, I think, of the guys drafted in the top 10 rounds. 78% were Division I players, which is pretty loud. It used to be, I would say, closer to 60-40 in those top 10 rounds. This is how it felt to me back in the day. But I think college players are safer. I think, the college programs do a great job developing guys now. There's a lot of resources poured into this stuff. I mean, a lot of the pitching labs that you see and the other strength facilities and all these things and the support staffs that these guys have, a lot of times are better than what they're going to see in the minor leagues. And so I think it does make sense that we're seeing teams take advantage of that in the draft. Is, hey, these guys are already pretty well developed because the college programs have done a good job with them. And so that's part of it too. But certainly, there's a lot of risk averseness, I think. I don't know if that's a word, averseness, but I think teams in the draft they're looking for guys that are pretty safe bets, and especially in the first round, it's a lot of college players. They're still going to have some guys, that they're going to factor in from the high school ranks every year, especially the really, can't miss high-end guys, the Bobby Witt Juniors. When those guys come along, they're still going to go towards the top of the draft. But this year, I mean, the first, 8, 9, 10 picks, 8 picks were all college guys. First 8 picks. And so, that to me was pretty striking, in addition to just the overall kind of college heaviness of the first round of the first 10 rounds.
Before I get to a couple of other players specifically, and I mentioned Paul Skeens, who came out of LSU and now is just mowing people down for the Pirates and will start tonight in the All-Star game. What are the chances that Chase Burns, who was the second player taken for Wake Forest, what is the chances that he follows a similar path?
Yeah, I think you could put him in the big leagues today.
Right.
If you ramp them back up, and he would get outs. I mean, there's no question. It's ridiculous major league caliber stuff, as good as you'll see in the big leagues. I mean, that slider. I talked to a lot of scouts this spring who said that's as good a slider as they've ever seen. and it's ridiculous. It's coming, and it's 87 and 90 miles an hour with tremendous bite and tight spin, and by the way, he can throw 100 off of that, and he'll also drop in a curveball. That's the thing is, I think I heard somebody in the draft broadcast calling him a two-pitch reliever guy. I don't agree with that. Because he didn't need to use much more than those two pitches because they're so darn good. But a curveball, I mean, he'll flash you a plus curveball. He just doesn't have to use it that much. He's even got feel for a changeup. I think he's a four-pitch guy. I think he's going to move very quickly. I actually think he profiles as a starter. I like him better as a starter, in fact, than I do as a reliever because he's so emotional that I think it's better for him to have to pace himself over 7 innings rather than just come out here with the full adrenaline and just full psychopath mode for 1 inning. I don't think that's necessarily like in his best interest. I think he's better when he has to kind of dial it back a little bit, like he did this year for Wake Forest.
Aaron Fitt, D1Baseball.com, joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Vance Honeycutt goes 22 from North Carolina to the Baltimore Orioles. The first thing I thought of, I mean, he was a great center fielder at UNC. In the big leagues, does he profile to stay there? Because, they look, arm strength, blah. I'm just curious. Does he still profile as a plus defensive big league center fielder?
Yeah, I would say even better than plus big league defensive center fielder. I think he's plus. I mean, he's good a center fielder as you're ever going to see at any level. Already, really. Like you talk to the longtime scouts in the Carolinas, and they'll say Jackie Bradley was the best I ever saw until Honeycutt came along. And it's it's really, really special instincts in addition to the speed, just the athleticism and the reads. The arm is fine. It's, that the arm is not the carrying tool. If you had a knock, I guess you would say he's not a great thrower, but
right.
He's a fine thrower. It's fine. And so, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing is there's obvious risk with Honeycutt with the bat because of the strikeout rate. I mean, everyone talks about that, and that's why he went 22 and not number 1 overall.
Right.
He's got number 1 overall kind of tools with the power and the speed and the defense. But my opinion is the defense actually gives him a much higher floor than someone else who maybe has the kind of swing and miss question marks, because the defense is going to play. And even if he hits 220 and runs into 25 home runs and plays Gold Glove defense, you got a useful player.
Yep.
And if you can make some adjustments with the bat and the approach and the swing, whatever, and get a little more consistent contact. And again, he made perfectly fine contact at the college level. It also came with swing and miss. At the next level, he's going to have to make some adjustments. And I think the Orioles are a great organization for him because they're really smart. They're really good at player development, as you can see with what they've done through their system right now and what they've got in the big leagues. I think it's a great landing spot for him. I think they'll find a way to get the most out of him. Yeah,
you mentioned Jackie Bradley Jr., who played at South Carolina. It was that kind of player too. It was great defense. The offense wasn't always good. He did have some good years, and if Honeycutt is a better version of that, then they've got something. Jonathan Santucci from Duke in the second round goes to the Mets. He was injured at the end of last season. I'm really not even sure Duke used him in the last couple of weeks and into the NCAA tournament. How does he profile as a pro?
He's very exciting. It's for him. It's just about staying healthy, because when he's been healthy, he's been really good. I mean, it's a guy that came in as a two-way player. He's a center fielder, so he's really athletic. So I like that profile. The really athletic left-handed pitcher, physical as well. I mean, it looks like he would be durable. It's just pitching is such an unnatural thing. You just never know.
Right.
Injuries happen, but I mean, it's mid-90s, 94, 96, with decent life, kind of carry through the zone, some deception, and it's a really good slider. That pitch came on for him in a big way this year. It became a major out pitch, huge swing and miss rates on that. He'll have to continue to develop the changeup, I think, but and throw a few more consistent strikes. I mean, that. He started out strong this year with the control piece, kind of faded a little bit. And as you said, he missed some time late in the year, came back at the very end for the regional and looked great. He was in a short stint. And so, it seemed like he's healthy. I think that's a steal for the Mets to get him at pick 46, because, early in the year, really halfway through the year, I'm thinking this guy's a top 15 pick. That's what he looked like. And so that's a great value for the Mets.
All right, let me ask you about the latest NC State catcher to get drafted. This seems, like Penn State used to be linebacker U, and Alabama became they became everything U, but like wide receiver U. Is NC State catcher U? Jacob Cozart goes to Cleveland in the second round.
Yeah, they just keep churning them out, don't they? I mean, you got Patrick Bailey out there, you got Kisner up there.
Yeah.
It feels like they just keep on developing these guys, and this was one Cozart where everyone knew coming out of high school, like he was a guy. There wasn't, they still had to develop. All players have to develop. I mean, he hit 240 as a freshman, and they did a great job with him. But he was somebody who was regarded as a can't miss prospect from the beginning, and they've done a good job getting some of these high end recruits out of high school behind the plate. They prioritize that position. Chris Hart, the recruiting guy, does such a great job, and they keep getting these guys and having a stalwart for 3 years. And Cozart's, he's the next one, like you said. And again, I thought, heading into the year that he'd be a first rounder, and he had a solid enough year. I mean, gosh, he hit 19 home runs. OPS over 1,000. I mean, walked more than he struck out. I mean, heck, I'm frankly I'm a little baffled why he was undervalued. I think he was undervalued in the draft. I think maybe just he's so famous that people were nitpicking him a little bit. And if you want to nitpick an amateur player, you can do it. You can find things to quibble with. But I mean, I think it's a major league catcher, a starting major league catcher. I think he receives well enough. I think he throws well enough. He's physical. He's left-handed, and I think he's going to hit. There is power there. I think it's at least above average to plus raw power. And controls the zone okay. I mean, what do you want? I mean, it's a premium position guy
right.
who looks the part. I mean, how does this guy slip to the middle of the second round? It beats me. But I thought, day one, I thought the Guardians won day one in my mind because I thought they took the best player with number one pick, Travis Bazzana. Who, I mean, you can take your pick at the top of the draft. There's no consensus number one this year. Our official rankings at D1 had Caglione number one. I saw that people had made Weatherholt. Personally, on my board, I had Travis Bazzana at the top of the board.
Okay.
I thought the Guardians took the best guy, and I thought they had really won the lottery there in the second round with getting Cozart. I think that's a great value.
All right, final thing. Trey Savage from East Carolina goes middle of the first round to Toronto as well. Get your thoughts on that.
Again, great value there. A guy that could have gone in the top 10 picks. I mean, really, it felt like there was a top tier when it came to pitching this year. I mean, there was Burns and Hagen Smith, which was kind of, I guess that's because of 1A,
right?
The very top tier, and then 1B I thought was the Savage, maybe Jurangelo Cincha, the switch pitcher from Mississippi State.
Switch
and
pitcher. That's so funny to me, the switch pitcher. We have to talk about that another time.
Yeah, and he'll probably just be a right-handed pitcher in pro ball. But it's funny because if he were, just a lefty with his current stuff, I still think he'd be a draft guy, and that's how talented he is. But yeah, to get Savage where they did, 15, 20, pick 20, did we say? Pick 20. Pretty good. That's pretty good because you're looking at probably a slam dunk, middle of the rotation starter, in the big leagues. I think that's what he is. I think he's a very reliable, like number 3, maybe number 2 type starter. Really commands a fastball, slider, splitter. Big body guy. The delivery is the one thing. If you're again nitpicking, some scouts don't love the delivery, but I think it's fine. And he makes it work. He repeats it. So I really like that pick a lot for Toronto.
Aaron Fitt likes his delivery. He thinks it's fine. And that's enough for me. At Aaron Fitt, D1Baseball.com, great clubhouse guy. Thank you so much, man. We'll talk switch pitching another time.
All right, Adam. Have a great summer.